Today we're going to talk about 20 things that you need to know before selling your home in 2025. Let's go. Hi, I'm Alexa. I'm a local real estate advisor. I'm also an investor. I do some flips here and there. And my goal for these videos is to really just help you get all the information you need to make sure you decide on who's the best advisor for you. Whether it's with our company, whether it's with any other company, you just want to make sure you're working with the right people. And I'll say this as a disclaimer because I've had some people sometimes say, you guys are just in it for the money. Look, none of us work for hugs and kisses, but there's a way to take care of people and still make money without taking advantage of them. So that's what you want to be looking out for. All right, done with my rant, let's get into it. Now, the first thing you want to understand is the market. So a lot of the times when you don't understand the market, somebody can come and tell you, hey, things are looking really bad and you should really do something about it. You should get out before it tanks. Or the opposite, right? It's the best time of the market, and all because they really don't know. Realistically, an answer that I always tell my clients is everybody's situation is different. So just because you're able to buy right now doesn't mean some other person might be able to buy. Now, this is important because if you were selling your home, you were probably wondering why at the end of last year, it felt so slow. I literally had some listings that were still going under contract. Meanwhile, others were literally like crickets. I was like, what's going on here? The reality is that historically, every single presidential election year, it actually slows down the market roughly about 15%. So in traditional years, what we actually experience during the months of October, November, and December is the market slows down. It's holiday season, people are going out of town. But when you understand this, it helps you actually know that there was nothing wrong with your house. It was just the fact that the market was doing what it does. And if you understand that and you have the right people explaining this to you, it's a lot easier for you not to freak out when everybody else is screaming that the sky is falling. Now, number 2, you just want to understand that your interest rates are actually tied into the 10-year treasury yield. So what happens with this, it's going to affect the ability for a buyer to be able to qualify because this is going to affect their debt to income. So when you can understand what's happening in the market, it also allows you to adjust accordingly. I've had some clients that unfortunately, when they first came to me, they had preconceived ideas of when they sold their house back in COVID. I had this one client, amazing girl, but she had that idea of, you know what, back in the day when I sold it in COVID, I had a bunch of offers. So it was a little hard to have her understand that the market was different from what that looked like. And not from like a perspective of her understanding, but just from a perspective of it being different than what she did go through. So this is something that if you can understand that all of these factors influence how much you can sell your house for, it helps you better understand that it's not the agent that's trying to make you lowball your house. It's all tied into the rest of the components that affect how much you can sell your house for. Now, on that same subject, number 3 is going to be for you to just know that it's taking a little bit longer for houses to sell. And this is where we go back to the example I mentioned earlier. There are some houses that can literally take 80 days to go under contract. Meanwhile, we've had other houses that within 2 weeks, they went under contract. So just understanding that the market is timed a little bit different based off the area, based off what's going on at that time, is gonna help you just take a moment to understand that it's not the end of the world if your house didn't get 100 showings in the first week. It is normal. Now, this next tip is very important because you want to make sure that before you do any of these understandings and any of the next steps that you're going to do, you really have taken the time to make sure you're working with the right agent. We made another video about questions that you should ask when you're interviewing your agent. So if you're interested in that, check it out down below. We'll link the links. But it's very important, guys, because at the end of the day, this person is the person that you're trusting to guide you to the entire transaction. And a lot of you guys are picking people just because you feel obligated to, or because it's a family friend, or because somebody told you and you didn't do your own research. That is the worst thing you can do. Although somebody else might have had a great experience with them, you don't know the expectations that that person had. So let's say I'd work with that person, but I was super laid back, I didn't need any updates, and that person, the realtor, never texted me. I wasn't really gonna think anything of it because that was my expectation. But if I was somebody that had, higher expectations, and this agent is not taking the time to reach out to me, these things are going to affect the way that we work together. So really just taking the time to understand who you're going to be partnering up with is essential. And those questions are going to really help you to make sure that you don't sign an agreement before making sure the person you wanted to sign the agreement is going to actually be in alignment with you. Now, the next tip for that on the same structure of hiring your agent is you want full transparency. Before you sign on the dotted line, you want to make sure you're upfront about compensations and that you understand what you're paying. And this is going to go into a few points, so bear with me. The reason why this is important is because nowadays, if you guys don't know, the whole lawsuit that happened with NAR, basically a bunch of people were being shady and not being very transparent about how commissions are handled, which have always been negotiable. Every time have been negotiable. Sorry for that, but it's just really annoying because of one person, everybody else, gets the short end of it. But anyways, rant over. So right now, what you want to make sure you're doing is that you understand what you're actually agreeing to in terms of, yes, what you're paying for, but also what you're receiving. Because another tip that happens a lot of the times is when you understand the compensation, that's great. But a lot of the times they're not telling you what they're actively going to invest money for you in order to market your property. So when you are going to agree, make sure you are getting all of those details in writing before you actually sign that agreement with them. Now, the next tip you want to make sure you're doing is you want to be you want to stalk them. Yes, you want to stalk your agent. And the reason I say this is because honestly, the people that you're going to work with, again, they have a huge impact on this experience. Whether you work with the best agent or the worst agent, you're going to remember this experience in one way or another. Might as well make it the best experience you possibly can. But something that does happen is that they are really good about making you sign an agreement, promising you the star, the moon, and everything above. But then when it comes to delivering on some of these services, you want to make sure that they are actually going to do what they said in their listing agreement. I'll give you an example. So I've had a lot of people that say they do professional photos. And then when the photos are up on the MLS, you can clearly tell they were not professional photos. They were taken by their iPhone. And although you might be saying, Alexa, my iPhone takes some pretty good pictures, it's not the same, okay? And a photographer that's gonna go out and really get the best light out of your home is priceless. And this is really essential, and a lot of agents just cheap out. They don't wanna spend the $600, $700 that it costs to get a good videographer out there to get the pictures, get the video, get all the nice stuff. And that's something that is important because when you are working with an agent that unfortunately is cutting corners, you're going to also get the short end of that. Now, on that same category, another tip you want to make sure you're doing with this agent before you actually hire them and before anything further, even before they go to your house, okay? If you're going to interview them and they're going to go to your house, ask them to send you their social media marketing. That's it. Ask them, can you share with me some of your social media marketings? Because this is why I'm telling you this. If I tell you, hey, I do marketing, I love to do videos, and I'm gonna sell your house, and we're gonna, do a open house, and we're gonna do, a networking event, and we're gonna just try and get as much exposure, and I'm gonna run some ads, and I'm gonna do this campaign. Then at the end of the day, when this is something that we're doing, you need to make sure that this is stuff that is actively going to obviously benefit you. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, some of these agents will tell you that they're going to do some of these marketing things. And if you look at their social media account, you can very, very quickly tell they're not actively on social media. So if you see somebody like myself where you're like, okay, this girl on Instagram has X amount of followers, she has, some, engagement on her posts, she's actually running ads, she actually has these marketing flyers that she's been actually running on ads through social media, advertising, retargeting. There's so much that goes into it. And if you have the right person that is taking the time to, again, make sure they're actually doing their job, that's gonna be so much easier for you. And you're not gonna have to deal with the headache of signing with that agent and then later, 6 months down the road, realizing they weren't able to sell it all because they didn't do the marketing that they said they were going to do, because they didn't wanna pay for that upfront. And some of them, honestly, sometimes it's just because they don't wanna risk the deal not closing and then they lost that money that they paid upfront. But again, that's not your fault. That's part of the business. And if you want to be a realtor, you need to put your best foot forward for your clients and provide a great service. And that is what you want to make sure you are hiring. Now, this one's a little tip for you as a home seller, because maybe you're looking around your house and you're thinking, you know what, my house is very outdated. I really want to freshen it up, but I'm not very creative. Or maybe you're just more on the fence about hiring a designer and you want somebody to go and actually help you with your house. You can actually use AI to help you visually with what your end result looks like. So you can use softwares like Dolly. ChatGPT is a connection of Dolly, which basically you can input details to help you be very specific about what it is that you would like your space to look like. And it can help you. I'll put some inserts here of some examples of how they look like. And it's great. And you did it for free. And now you have some inspiration to do on your house and you don't have to pay for it. Now, the next tip is going to be things that you can do around your house. And the first thing you really want to look for, now that you have the inspiration from Dolly or whichever AI app you're using, now you really want to start doing some of these updates before selling your home. I am telling you, this goes a long way. It's like selling a car. You're not going to go to the dealership and sell the car all dirty, all ugly. You're going to wash it, you're going to make it look nice. And it's very important to do the same with your house, okay? I have talked about this before. There's a whole list that we actually put together. I'll link the video as well for that so that you can see the things that you want to make sure you're considering upgrading around your house. We have a full list for it. If you're interested, feel free to download it. It's completely free. But it's important to understand that these little things maybe for you don't make a big deal, and for somebody else, it's going to make a world of a difference. And because you did these upgrades, it cost you a fraction of what you could have paid if you would have, maybe paid somebody else to do it. I don't know, maybe you have some doorknobs and they look outdated. You can go on Amazon, order some for like $20. These little things help you to give it the character that it needs. If you really pay attention to the new houses, that's what really they change. Like the styles that change through time are the colors, literally the colors of the house, the palette of like the tiles, and then of course like the type of textures that they're using for like the cabinets and the countertops. But that's typically the main things that they're changing out. So of course you can't change your cabinets in terms of like your countertops, but you can always do small certain things that are going to help you just bring these things back to life. And quite frankly, they're pretty inexpensive. If you shop for some good deals, you can get some stuff done that is going to really help you, and those photos are going to come out that much nicer because you took the time. A quick tip for that as well, which I don't personally agree with, but I'm going to share it with you because apparently that's the newest trend. The grays are out and the warms are back in. So if that has been something that you had been thinking about putting some more warms in your house and you had been on the fence about, this is your sign to go ahead and start incorporating some of it, because again, trends are always changing. So this is something that for me, I personally don't really like to follow all the trends. I like what I like and that's it. But I know there's some people that really do like these things. So when I am advising a seller, I do ask them to make sure that they're aware of some of these trends, because it really does help you just make sure that you're staying on top of what other houses might be doing for the buyers, so that you can make sure you're obviously, being competitive. Now this next tip is going to sound funny, but it's very important. And we have a lot of clients that are coming from different parts, and they have actually been asking for more information about the feng shui of the house. And for those of you that don't know what the feng shui of the house is, it's basically where is the house facing. And just so that you know, I personally love talking about these things because I love talking about energy. So this is a big one for me, and it's very important for you to just have a welcoming environment. So for example, feng shui, let's say you are putting your desk against the wall, it's going to create more of a block versus if you put your desk in front of a window. That is how feng shui works. It's creating this flow through the room. And a lot of people, believe it or not, they're asking these questions. So just knowing where's your house facing, that is something that could really help you when these questions arise, so that you're prepared, and also so that you can consider it when you're setting up the layout around your house, that the feng shui is flowing as well. Okay, now something that I definitely want to caution you about, and this is definitely something you want to pay attention to, is just because you are officially under contract, okay, does not mean you have officially sold your house. And this is something that happens time and time again. Unfortunately, people will make an offer and they tell you we're good to go, and at the very last minute, unfortunately, they did some stuff that they weren't supposed to, they bought stuff that they weren't supposed to, and they affected their DTI, and now they basically can't purchase a home. And this is unfortunate, but the reason I'm sharing this with you is because you really just want to make sure you understand all the pros and the cons. I always say this to my clients, like every single time we go and we're doing, let's say we have an option period, there is always a conversation that I have with them about, is this 100% what you want to do? Because the moment that we proceed, this is it, we're moving forward. And it's just really important to make sure that you understand that there are things that can happen that are out of the control of people. And this is something that you're going to feel a lot more better about if you can objectively go into it knowing nothing is set in stone until I actually get a clear to close from the lender. Then you can celebrate, but until then, just know that it's part of real estate. It has ups, it has downs, but nevertheless, if you have the right agents, they're gonna help you, they're gonna back you up. So just make sure that that is something you're considering. And as a quick side note, guys, if you're considering buying in El Paso, we would love the opportunity to assist you. We've been getting a ton of calls of people just like you that are considering relocating into El Paso, and I would love to connect with you guys. Either go ahead and feel free to book a call down below on our Calendly link, or follow us on our Instagram account so that we can go ahead and connect. Until then, I just appreciate the fact that you guys are watching these videos and finding so much content about it. But now let's get back to the video. Okay, now tip number 13, it's something very important you want to consider, is navigating through inspections and appraisals. Now, here is the bottom line. Inspections are the part of the deal, right? When you're buying something, you want to make sure that you're actually happy with what you're purchasing. And a lot of the times people actually get confused between the inspections and the appraisals. Best way to understand it, inspection is optional, appraisal is mandatory. Appraisal gets sent by the lender on your behalf to appraise the home. The inspector actually gets sent out on your behalf because you paid for them to go out and inspect the property before you purchase it. So it's extremely important to just understand that a lot of these things are still stepping stones that you need to move by in order for you to actually finalize the purchase of your home. And unfortunately, sometimes, again, we go back to the DTI scenario, people won't share these things with you, and then at the last minute you wonder, like, why did you tell me that we were under contract and you congratulated me, Billy, and you told me we're good to go, but then now we have all these back and forths with the inspections and the appraisal. Why didn't you share this with me? So it's very important to understand how this time frame works. Now, tip number 14, this is something that I just want to add and very much emphasize on. Whether you're selling with an agent or whether you're selling on your own, please make sure you're actually hiring the photographer we talked about. It's really going to help you and really make the difference when it comes to advertising it. I have seen it time and time again. A lot of those discount brokers where they tell you, yeah, we'll list your house for 1% and we'll just put it on there, and good luck. You send us the pictures. And then you send them the pictures, and then you took them with your phone, and that also affects you. So if you're not going to hire an agent to do any of the things we're talking about, make sure you do this one thing, because it is going to help you. So I wanted to make this its own little category, because professional photos make the world of a difference. Now, tip number 15, and we've talked about it before, is staging. Staging is something that you could definitely do to improve your home. Same with like the upgrades that you're doing, of course, but staging if the house is actually vacant, depending on your situation, talk to your realtor, because that's a service that they can actually pay for you. So ask them about it. But again, that is definitely going to help because it allows the person that's going to move into that house to visualize themselves living there before they have any of their things there. Now, tip number 16 is understanding your closing costs. That's your net sheet. So it's happened multiple times where we have worked with the buyer and then at the last minute we find out that the listing agent is telling us that the seller is upset with them because of how much they're going to net because they didn't run the numbers correctly for them. So that's not fun, right? It's like if you thought you were gonna walk away with $200,000 after everything was said and done and everything was sold, and then now your agent is telling you you're only gonna walk away with $100,000. Well, that's a big concern. So you wanna make sure that you really took the time to understand what your fees are looking like so that you have a preliminary idea of what that might look like so that you're not caught off guard. Now, tip number 17 is don't let emotions ruin your home selling journey. And it happens a lot. Selling a home is definitely something that can have a lot of emotions. And sometimes if the agent goes up to you and they tell you, hey, this is what I think your house is worth, you might get offended. And honestly, guys, don't take it personal. It's our job to get you the most that we can. Like, that literally is how we get paid, right? Like, we want to sell it for the most we can, and in return, we get a commission from that. So when you think about it, it's in our best interest to make sure that we can help you sell it for the most that you possibly can. And I say this to you in the, for full transparency, because I've seen it where a lot of the times agents don't explain that to their clients. And then when they give them the price, the client thinks that the only reason why the agent is telling them that the price should be so low is because they think the agent just wants to sell it quick. But in reality, if there's numbers, which we talked about it earlier, if they gave you the data and they took the time to really make sure that they gave you all the reasons why they believe that that house is worth what they told you they do, then there's really no reason for you to take it personal and think that they don't like your house. I had one client that told me that he had taken it, personal when this other agent had basically told them the price of what she thought they could sell it for was because he had a bunch of trees in his backyard, peach trees, apple trees, and just the whole thing. So that was very insulting to him because he took a lot of time to, obviously take care of this. But in reality, it was not something that she was doing intentionally. She was not trying to make him feel any type of way. She was just being honest about how the market looked like. I delivered the message in a different way, which actually was what landed me the listing. But realistically, I said the same thing just in a different way. The number that he was looking for wasn't there, but you really just need to dissociate yourself from taking it personal. We're not attacking your home. We're not attacking you. We're talking about the home because we don't want your house to get the bad stigma of that house that stays and it's not selling. We need to make sure that we're on the same page, and the only way we can do that is by being honest. Now, tip number 18 as we approach the end of our list here, and that's to make sure you price it correctly from the beginning. And it goes back to the point that I mentioned right now. Unfortunately, some agents will tell you what you want to hear. So they will tell you, yeah, I think we could sell it for, let's say you were thinking it was worth $500,000. But let's say you had another agent, because remember, we talked about the fact that you should be interviewing agents, right? So let's say you interviewed Sally, Billy, and Sally told you it was worth, I don't know, $500,000, but Billy, after you told him you thought it was closer to $600,000, he tells you it's worth $600,000. But you know that you're looking at the comps that Billy is giving you, and you can clearly see that all the houses are closer to $500,000. Why in the world would you listen to Billy? Billy is lying to you. Billy wants you to sign the agreement with him so that later they can tell you, hey, we need to reduce the price, but now you're already tied into the contract. You rather go with Sally that's going to be upfront with you about the fact that, hey, honestly, I wish I could sell it for more, but this is what the comps are. And this is something that you do need to make sure you're comfortable with, because unfortunately, if you don't price it correctly from the beginning, it's only going to hurt you. If I price your home for $500,000 and let's say all your neighbors were priced at $400,000 and it's been 3 months, 5 months, 6 months in the market, by the time that you actually give me the green light to reduce the price, let's say we've already been on the market for, I don't know, 6 months by this point, obviously that's going to tremendously impact you, because now let's say you reduced it slightly by like $20,000. Now somebody's gonna see it and say they're at 500,000, they dropped it to 480, but I see that all the other houses are worth 420, I'm gonna offer them 410 because they're gonna realize that obviously the market is not what they are asking for. And of course, you can set yourself and be set on that number, but the reality is the numbers don't lie. And I always say this on my listing presentations. There's 3 things that dictate the actual market, okay? There's the comps, there's yourself, and of course, there is going to be the consumer. And at the end of the day, the one that actually matters the most is a consumer because they're the ones that are willing to pay. So you just need to make sure you understand this so you don't put yourself in a bind. Now, tip number 19, and this one's honestly something you really want to consider, is be flexible when it comes to showings. I've had it happen where some sellers are not flexible. They have pets in the house and it's super hard to show the house, or they have little ones and there's always a mess, so they're not able to accommodate some showings. And trust me, I get it. I have little ones, I have pets. I know it can be very overwhelming, but honestly, the moment that you decide you want to sell your house, you need to be intentional about it. And I'm going to tell you why. I had one client, basically, we're good friends, so that's why I feel comfortable sharing the story. But basically, I knew for a fact that they wanted, they were kind of undecisive about where they were at in terms of the next step after listing it. But because they were friends, I told them, okay, cool, let's list it, let's get it on the market. So when it came down to showings, it was very hard to show, very hard. All the time, it was like, I'm sorry. Anyways, those days were starting to rack up on days on market, okay? So on the computer, all the other people that are searching this house are seeing the house and are progressively seeing that it gets more days on the market, right? It's just sitting there. So anybody that sees that, they're gonna believe, oh, they must be having a ton of showings, but they're not getting any attention. But in reality, we weren't showing it because we weren't able to show it because it was so hard to get them to actually be able to show it. So long story short, that affected them because now that house basically had racked up a ton of days on the market. And by the time that we actually wanted to be more serious about letting people in, because now they were taking it more serious, making arrangements to make sure everything was prepared and organized on time. Now, of course, that had hurt them because they had been on the market for so long. We had to do a price reduction. And these are the little things that you just want to make sure you're being very strategic about. And unfortunately, if you are not being strategic from the beginning, it is going to hurt you. And the last tip I'm going to share with you is make sure you have a plan. Make sure everything is set. And of course, things can always happen, but try to make sure your agent is going to help you to the best of their abilities, organize as much as they can. I'll give you an example. I have a client right now relocating from Chicago. We're literally in touch with our agents out in Chicago. We're listing that house. We're going under contract over in El Paso. By the time that this house closes is by the time that we finalize the purchase on this house. So everything is timed and everything is being actually orchestrated in a way that is going to flow to benefit the client. Make sure you're not in a situation like I've seen poor people be in where they're just stuck. They're literally stuck and they weren't able to do anything about it. They're homeless because they sold one house and they still hadn't finalized on the sale of the other house. And those are just situations that you want to avoid. Again, things do happen and sometimes they're out of your control. But again, overall, if you have a clear plan from the beginning, you're going to be a lot more likely to succeed from the get-go. With that being said, I want to thank you for sticking around for the entire video. I want to ask you for a favor. If you got any value from this video, I would appreciate if you considered liking this video and subscribing or sharing it with somebody that you think would benefit from this. And yes, although it helps to grow the channel, quite frankly, we want to make sure that this gets to more people so they're not getting taken advantage of by people that don't have their best interest in mind, okay? So I thank you again. And for those of you also that are interested in our bonuses that we have all of the links down below. Feel free to check them out. But of course, until then, I wish you guys a great day and I'll talk to you guys on the next video. Oh, by the way, before you head out, I highly recommend you check out our last video, which is explaining the difference between an inspection and appraisal if you want a more in-depth video. All right, thanks for watching, guys.